Inmates Hugo, Uno, Rock, and Nico escape from Namba prison but are apprehended and returned to their cells by Supervisor Hajime Sugaraku. They conclude that life inside the prison is pretty good. When Hugo learns that there is a woman in the prison, he and his friends break out of their cell and rush into the visiting room. They see a lovely young lady, but it is actually Hajime's younger cross-dressing brother, Hatoshi. Hugo escapes from his cell once more and tells Hatoshi about the shackles around his neck, wrists, and ankles. Warden of Namba prison, Momoko Hayakushiki, returns to the island. Warden Momoko Hayakushiki warns Hajime to be wary of the prisoners in Building 13, but he claims that the 4 in Cell 13 are not a threat. Warden Momoko has a crush on Hajime. It is revealed after the meeting. Hugo escapes once more, and Hajime discovers him sleeping in the night duty room. Hugo claims it's because of Rock's snoring, Uno's teeth grinding, and Nico's sleep laughter. Cell 13's 4 inmates are assigned to work in the woodworking shop, but they fail to complete their tasks. Meanwhile, Hatoshi is worried that the warden will learn about their daily cell escapes. Later, he is summoned to the warden's office, where he personally explains why the inmates are not attempting to escape the prison, stating that the conditions are superior to those in other prisons. Satoru complains to Supervisor Hajime Sugaraku that the inmates in Cell 13 are disrespectful to him, so Sugaraku suggests some techniques based on the inmates' weaknesses. The warden informs Sugaraku that a new inmate will arrive and be assigned to Cell 13. Tsukumo, prisoner 1399, is moved into the cell and claims to be a shinobi. He then challenges Hugo to a game of escape. Hugo frees them from their cell, but Hajime apprehends them before they get very far. Tsukumo employs ninja techniques without success and becomes trapped within his own makibishi. Later, guards Hajime and Salmon clean the warden's office in preparation for the new year, and the warden is mesmerized by Sugaraku's movements due to her crush on him. The inmates of Cell 13 break out again to celebrate the new year. The warden announces the New Year Joint Cooperation Tournament, in which prisoners and guards from each building compete in 5 events against those from other buildings. In Event 1, Kakazone, Hugo's calligraphy is terrible, but Hajime and Yamato provide winning scripts. In Event 2, Maki Pounding Daruma Drop, Yamato and Rock compete, and Rock has to fight an old cellmate, Yang. They win because of Rock's fighting ability. In Event 3, Hyakan, Uno's teeth grinding and Nico's sleep laughter become part of the story. They compete against guard Kiji Mitsuba with Tua and Honey from Building 3. Seijiro easily defeats Kiji Mitsuba, but Uno appears to be doomed against Tua and Honey. In Event 3, Uno outplays Tua and Honey in the Hyakunin card game because he was able to memorize their telltale micro-movements before they picked each card, and he wins. Top spinning is the 4th event, requiring up to 3 participants from each team to spin a giant top and knock the other team's top out of the ring. The game's host selects guard Hajime to compete against Sam and Goku of Building 5 and Keiji Mitsuba of Building 3. They compete against Kenshiro Yazakura of Building 4. When Sam and Goku attack Hajime, Nico steps in, and a physical battle ensues with Nico employing his gaming abilities to mimic Yupa's Qigong-style moves. Hajime and Nico eventually win and will now face the winners of the other bout, Building 4 with Kenjiro Yazakura and an unknown inmate. Say Barrel Opening is the final match of the New Year Joint Cooperation Tournament between Buildings 13 and 4. Hajime and Hugo will face Kenjiro and inmate 634, Musashi, Hugo's ex-cellmate. The fighting starts right away, and they have a variety of non-lethal weapons at their disposal. Hajime performs admirably until Kenjiro employs an invisible whip technique. Hajime eventually defeats Kenjiro. Hugo is no match for Musashi, who uses a spontaneous human combustion technique. When Musashi mentions knowing the man who shackled Hugo, Hugo loses his temper and retaliates. Guard Mitsuru takes a break from the action to tell a story about prisoner 1399, Tsukumo Hanzo Hattori. Tsukumo's former manager pays him a visit and encourages him to resume his acting career. Tsukumo recalls being a child and unsuccessfully training to be a ninja after being abandoned by his parents. Hattori's mother, a fading actress, finds and adopts him, promising to train him as a shinobi. However, she only succeeds in turning him into a shinobi actor. Tsukumo admits to Hugo that he is just an actor playing roles with no identity or character of his own. Hugo advises him to be himself. Mitsuru, the guard, promises that the action will continue in the next episode. The New Year Joint Cooperation Tournament's final round continues. Hugo's hand shackles transform into long blades, and he unleashes a powerful burst of energy on Musashi, causing the stadium to collapse and a panic. Musashi responds with fireballs, and the warden orders them apprehended. Musashi is attacked and subdued by the guards who use their own special abilities while dodging his fireballs. Hajime pursues Hugo, who is too enraged and powerful to be stopped. Nico, Rock, and Uno rush into the arena to apprehend Hugo before he gets into more trouble, but Hugo escapes. Hajime intervenes, and Uno beats Hugo half to death with his fist. Just as he is about to kill him, Hugo is still unconscious and in critical condition. Days later, the other guards chastise Hajime for being violent and ruining the post-tournament celebrations. Uno criticizes him for being violent. Despondent, Hajime is then suspended for 3 days by the warden. After Hugo regains consciousness, Hajime goes to see him and meets Kenjiro Yazakura, who informs him that Musashi is in an underground cell. Musashi refuses to answer questions about his abilities until he speaks with Hugo. The guards install an intercom, and Musashi reveals that he wants to kill the man with the scar on his neck but that his flame ability has been disabled. He reveals that the man promised to assist him in dealing with his innate firepower but instead experimented on him and then disposed of him once he had the information. Hajime accuses Hugo of lacking ambition and greed and claims that the transforming shackles are the only thing that distinguishes him. He then accuses Hugo of acting like a spoiled brat, to which Hugo agrees. He tells Hugo that as the tournament winner, he can have whatever he wants and gives him 5 minutes to make his decision. Meanwhile, his cellmates plan what they would do if they were released. Hugo finally decides to return to Cell 13 and be with his friends, but he will still pursue the man with the scar. The warden assigns 3 guards to supervise Cell 13 during Hajime's suspension and while Hugo is in the special medical ward. On the first day, Kenjiro Yazakura takes Nico and the other 2 inmates to see Dr. Akina Otogi for a post-tournament checkup, but they are completely distracted by the lovely nurse android, Kabu Aide. On the second day, guard Keiji Mitsuba takes over and gives the inmates a rolled futon with a picture of Hugo's face on it, so they don't miss him as much. This is followed by a presentation on the prison layout. On the third day, guard Samangoku takes command, but Yamato sends them out for physical training. Later, Hajime apologizes and returns Hugo to his cell. While waiting for Hajime's report, the warden is offended by Mitsuru Hitako's action of wearing a paper mask with Hajime's picture and beats him to a bloody pulp. When Hajime enters and sees her blood-spattered smiling face, he rushes out terrified that she will beat him to death. Rock invites Lang to Building 13 to enjoy pizza baked in the stone oven he won in the New Year's tournament. He wants Lang to enjoy good food as much as he does, which he learned from Hugo. When Hugo, Rock, and Uno pay a visit to Nico in the infirmary, they meet head scientist Kazari Otogi, the wife of Dr. Akina Otogi. She built a video game parlor for Nico as a reward for his victory in the tournament. Nico invites Yupa to play the games with him, and Yupa reluctantly agrees. They no longer oppose each other. Nico then expresses gratitude to Hugo for rekindling his interest in life. When Musashi passes by, he and Hugo apologize to each other, and Uno invites him to hang out with them later. Guard Kenjiro Yazakura agrees to allow Musashi to visit Cell 13 in exchange for information on the man with the scar on his neck. Musashi tells Kenjiro Yazakura about his childhood, his innate ability to create fire, social isolation, and how an opportunistic fellow student framed him as an arsonist. Musashi describes how the jail supervisor with the scar on his neck subjected him to inhumane experiments before disposing of him once he had gathered enough data and was no longer useful. Genjiro tells Musashi that when he was a cop, he conducted his own investigation into the illegal experiments. His reports were rejected, but he remains determined to expose the truth. Meanwhile, Uno is putting his plan to create a game room into action with the help of the other tournament competitors. To their chagrin, Hajime says he will only allow the inmates to use the room for 1 hour per day, despite their requests for longer sessions. Hugo is depressed due to his lack of social skills, but Uno offers to assist him in socializing. The former student who assisted the jail supervisor with the scar on his neck appears behind Hugo that night as he escapes again and enjoys the night sky. Elf makes fun of Hugo, accusing him of living selfishly and easily after being set free by the man with the scar, who is now considered a traitor. Hugo is attacked and cut with magical knives by Elf. He accuses Hugo of fleeing with property that does not belong to him, specifically the hand shackles that can transform into long blades. He expresses regret for not killing Hugo sooner. Elf then prepares to remove a portion of Hugo's brain, but Hugo escapes by converting one of his shackles into a sword. Elf claims his goal is to check on Hugo's condition and choose another inmate for their experiments. He then walks away, promising to return the next night. Hugo and his cellmates try to flee again but are apprehended at the border by Hajime. Hugo hopes that by leaving, Elf will follow him and abandon the others. Hajime and Hugo engage in a titanic fight, but the inmates of Cell 13 intervene and stop them because they do not want Hugo to leave. Hugo eventually decides to stay in Namba and protect his cellmate friends rather than flee. Like and subscribe, watch this next video.